He has a very extensive background in procurement and supply chain, and he's a leader on the global trends in this space. As a marketeer, he enjoys aligning programs and initiatives with an element of financial appeal to ensure the ultimate buyer and decision makers understand the value proposition. So help me welcome David, who's going to speak on procurement and how it's a new platform for change and innovation.
Such a nice introduction. Thank you, Dawn. Look at this. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you?
Good.
All right. There's good energy in the room. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. Wonderful introduction. I appreciate that. And it's an honor to have this opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you to Dawn. Thank you to the SIG team for setting us up. And I do want to walk you through sort of a new view on platform. But before we get started, just a reminder again, on Glisser, you can interact with this particular presentation if you follow Dawn's instructions. So do it. And we do also have a couple of polling slides built into this presentation. So as we kind of move through this today, you'll see some interactive slides. So I encourage you to participate that way. Again, my name is David Ahrens. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer with Tradeshift. The topic today is procurement, a new platform for change innovation. So show of hands, just sort of informal, how many of you in this room today feel that your strategy for 2025 built on a new procurement platform is ready to go? Show of hands. Kit, is this on? Hello? Seriously? Okay. I don't have to ask that again, right? No. Okay, so let's take a step back for a second. How many of you are at least somewhat down the road in planning for a future procurement platform for 2025, 2030? Show of hands. Oh gosh, don't be shy. Get those hands up, get those hands up. Okay, there's a few of you out there. And then, so shall I assume that the rest of you are feeling like you might be a little behind the 8 ball on your procurement 2025 platform? Yes, show of hands? Who didn't vote at all? Show your hands. Why did you not vote? Why did you not vote? Okay. So when we talk about platform, I think it means different things to different people, right? I have had plenty of conversations over the last couple of days with many of you, and the definition of platform, I don't know, it all seems a little bit different. Is it a technology? Is it your corporate infrastructure? Is it SaaS software? Is it something else? So let's throw out some ideas. What do you think? Let's start on this side of the room. How would you define platform? Just throw out a couple of keywords.
Cloud.
Cloud. Anyone else? Open it up to the whole room. Roadmap. A tool? Yep, a tool. Roadmap. Cloud. Any other thoughts on what a platform is? Software. Experience? User experience, yeah?
Content.
Say again?
Content,
yes. Yeah, is it one of these things? Is it all of these things? Is it all of these things and more? Probably. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to explore what this concept of platform means for all of you in the future in the context of procurement, supply chain, sourcing. Okay. So, radical change is here. I may make some provocative statements, but it's to get us all thinking, and maybe thinking in a slightly different way than we have traditionally around what the platform for the future is for your businesses and your teams. So radical change, why is it radical? Because there's an influx of AI technologies entering the market. There's blockchain, there's Internet of Things, there's cryptocurrency, there's what else can I talk about, right? There's all of these things influencing the market today, and it is having an impact. Here's the thing, it's not only just impacting you and your organizations, it's impacting your teams. So think about that for a second. We hear, and you see, there's some great articles on Fortune.com just posted in the last couple of days on sort of supply chain 2020. Have a read through some of those. But if you think about the articles that have been posted recently on how automation is going to completely transform the procurement function, right? There are some stunning declarations made in some of these articles, right? Robots are taking over. In 5 to 10 years, the landscape is going to be completely different. So what does that mean not only for you, but your teams? How do you keep your teams motivated? So as we talk through platform, I'm also going to layer on a little bit of sort of the people side of it. So often when we talk about initiatives or transformation, it's people, process, and technology. I do want to touch on all three of those. Obviously, platform is very steeped in technology, but I do want to touch on the people side of it because I think it's really important. And I have had the opportunity to sit with some global CPOs over the last several months and sort of talk about this and go in depth. And the one thing that seems to be coming up more and more and more is the people side. So how do we train them? How do we upskill? How do we change procurement and sourcing? How do we bring in non-procurement and sourcing people into procurement and sourcing and mix it up a little bit? Some organizations are doing it very, very well, and they're moving really quickly at it for a lot of good reasons. So let's keep that in context as well. So as I talk about people motivation, let's look at this quote. This is from Daniel Pink. He's the author of The Surprising Truth about what motivates us. So there's that word motivation. We have 3 innate psychological needs: competence, autonomy, and relatedness, connectedness. So when these needs are satisfied, we're motivated. When these needs are satisfied with our teams, they're motivated. And in the context of a drastic or radical change in procurement, supply chain, and sourcing that's coming, guess what? We have to find a new way to motivate our teams, right? That is the new reality, and it's moving very, very quickly. So let's get them productive and happy. So what motivates you? Imagine you come to your team after having a strategic meeting with your board, and you say, well, in 5 years, the robots are taking over, and Don, you won't have a job. Not motivated. Not motivated. Or, we did an analysis on the supply chain, and, we can automate all of that through AI, so yeah, our supply chain department, we're going to reduce that to nothing. Not motivated. I'm not motivated. Or, there are endless examples of how this can be brought to the organization. And think about it. If this is the new reality in a short few years, 2020 is around the corner. 2025 is not much further beyond that. If this is the new reality in the next few years, it means we have to start changing and adapting very, very quickly. And again, in the context, we have to allow our teams to adapt and upskill and reskill so that they do stay motivated and you remain competitive in your respective markets. So let's talk about procurement as a change agent, or in this case, change driver. So if we need to really have such an impact on the organization, what does that mean? It means that we're going to have to pay attention to things like AI. Artificial intelligence is here. It's been here for a long time, but it's really here now. And as a B2C, from a B2C perspective, or from a consumer perspective, we've just sort of accepted that, haven't we? Think of how you interact with your iPhone and Siri, what you do on Google every day, what you do with Amazon when you search for products, and they've got these wonderful recommendation engines. So we've not really been particularly resistant from a consumer perspective. But from a B2B perspective, there is a little bit of consternation when it comes to AI. How many of you in this room, your organizations, have a very specific AI function or group within them? Just show of hands. So just a few. Having been in software for 25 years, I have to tell you, AI is here. And if you haven't started wrapping your arms around that, it really is time to pay attention to it. It is going to, you hear all these buzzwords and artificial intelligence and neural networks and machine learning, and what does it all mean ultimately, right? It's really automation, right? It's automation that is going to change the world. So driverless cars, we see this is a perfect example, right, of the use of artificial intelligence. So if we're going to get in a driverless car, I hope that this driverless car can see for me. I hope that it can sort of hear for me. I hope that it has a reflex that I would if I had to slam on a brake to avoid an accident, right? This is artificial intelligence at play, and we see this every single day. As I say, it's not just artificial intelligence, though. Blockchain is coming. By the way, and I will do just a small shameless plug because we did have an announcement today, and I didn't really do an introduction of TradeShift. But we announced at TradeShift a partnership with the Hyperledger project, which is part of the Linux Foundation, completely focused on blockchain. Things like track and trace. And if you're not familiar with blockchain, I really encourage you to go to hyperledger.org and just get a top-level understanding of what's going on from that perspective. But so blockchain is also here. There's a lot of initiatives going on to create different blockchains in different markets and verticals to enable a very different way of doing business. And then Internet of Things, right, as I mentioned before. Even our CEO is quoted as saying, and if you know Christian, he'll say a lot, AI will completely replace most of procurement stack as we know it today. Again, a provocative statement, but we believe this is true. We don't just believe it as TradeShift, right? We believe it because we speak to industry analysts, we speak to all of you, we speak to professionals who have been in the space for a long time that are plugged into this trend. And I'll show you a little bit of a Gartner slide, Gartner Group industry analyst in a moment, just for some context. Here's another interesting stat. Funding, global financing of AI startups has exponentially grown. 658 startups were funded in 2016 to the tune of $5 billion with a B. That's massive investment when you consider that there was only about $500 million invested in 2012, right? So this is a serious trend we're seeing in the market. Now let's step back in history a little bit. 95, who remembers 95? That was a good year, wasn't it? In 1995, can you believe this? Large companies spent more than $15 billion, and at the time, that's a big amount of money. Not today. $15 billion on mainframe computers. Who doesn't know what a mainframe computer? Never mind. 5 years later, the PC replaced most functions solved by the mainframes. Innovation way back when in 1995. So again, it's just another friendly reminder that AI is going to absolutely revolutionize all of our work. So, is procurement about to have its mainframe moment? We'll do a polling question in just a second, so hang on to that thought. Let's challenge this a little bit. Okay, isn't this the world that we've lived in for the last, I don't know, how many decades? Right? All these controls, internal controls, a steady stream of feedback from the board and from your management team saying, where are my cost savings? Where's my 1%? Where's my 2%? Where's my 3%? And economies of scale. But is this suitable going forward? In the last 15 years, 52% of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared off that list. In 1955, the life expectancy of a Fortune 500 company was 75 years. Today, it's 15 and falling rapidly. Why? Because these companies have a hard time innovating. I like to give this example of Dollar Shave Club. Who knows Dollar Shave Club? Yeah, wow, you guys are plugged in. Do a lot of shaving. I guess. But wow, this company just roared onto the scene. And guess what? Its biggest competitors, right? Gillette's and P&G's, and I hope none of you are in the room, I'm sorry. But I think it's well documented that these large CPG companies had a hard time reacting to a competitor that just sort of screamed onto the scene, cut the cost, removed all of the barriers and friction to actually buying these, and created this huge group of loyal customers who like to shave, right? I mean, this is a really good example of disruption and about speed and agility. And I think these themes are really, really critical for all of us to talk about up the food chain to the management team and ensure that we're holding them accountable to speed, agility, and value creation. So, in that particular case, or in any of your cases, would 3% save those organizations? Probably not. Probably not. So it's kind of a sobering fact because we live this every single day, right? As procurement professionals, you live this every single day. Who in this room is not measured on cost savings? Right. Okay, so let's get you interacting through our Glisser poll here, so grab your iPhones. I'm glad you're so intently listening, though. I appreciate that. But this time, grab your iPhones. Is procurement about to have its mainframe moment? Just a yes or no. Do you think it is time to radically change? That's really what the question is. So we'll give this a few seconds, and then we'll pop the results up on the screen in a few minutes. So as you're doing that, who has another really good example of sort of a disruptive moment in time in the recent history that you think is sort of connected to a radical change in procurement? Anyone have a really good example? Who else has a good example? Yes, sir.
When outsourcing came on the scene in around 1990 to 2000 with the advent of low-cost service centers in India, China, various other areas.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's a great example, right? The outsourcing model to India and other low-cost producers really had a massive change on the professional services industry, particularly in developed nations, obviously, right? So we see this changing real time. Thank you, Glisser. This is great. So 70% of you say, yes, procurement is about to have its mainframe moment. That's profound. That's compelling. You believe there's something behind this, and this is why we're having the conversation around platforms. So thank you for the participation. That's wonderful. So we think that it's time to look at it a little bit differently. It's about innovation, it's about value creation, and it's about everywhere for everyone, right? Accessibility. Making a platform completely open to everybody to participate. But it also means, as we go back to the people side of it that I started with, that we have to focus on motivation of our teams. I think that it's not just self-motivation and motivation of your employee base, but I think it's sort of that upward management as well and across the organizations and getting everybody on the same page. So we have to continue to lead our teams, but we have to get really good at teaching. We may not know all AI best practices, certainly, right? It's impossible. We just can't. But we have to facilitate that learning for our teams. Whether you are an AI practitioner or not, as I say, it's coming. So think about how you're going to set up your team for success so that they understand how to embrace AI, and they understand how to leverage AI, and they understand how to really get success out of these kinds of projects. Also, think outcomes, not process. What is the destination? Where are you headed? Be strategic, but guess what? It can change in a moment, right? Market conditions, economic conditions, geopolitical conditions can change that. So is the model of your outcome and your ultimate strategy also very, very adaptable? Will you be able to change it on the fly? So that's a really interesting dynamic. We have not traditionally in industry planned in that way. It's sort of similar to how you see product organizations today do agile development, right? Everything is in these short little bursts and a lot of collaboration, a lot of meetings, and a lot of, these are engineers that are tapping away at computers, but they're spending a lot of time thinking outcome and less process and being very, very adaptable and rapid change oriented. So clearly, we live in exponential times. Moore's Law, I think a lot of people are familiar with this, right? Moore's Law is centered around the number of transistors on circuit chips. And when you look over the last 4 decades, there is sort of this exponential curve. That's what this is really highlighting. Similarly, this report on Internet of Things, you see that large blue bar at the top is the number of devices or sensors, if you will, around Internet of Things projected by 2020 to severely outpace every other category in here, although smartphones and smart home devices are also growing quite exponentially. But what do they have all in common? They are all going to be driven by AI. They are today. Your Echo, your Nest. Yeah, I've got Nest at home, right? These are brilliant systems. We, as I said before, we've just sort of integrated these into our personal lives. But guess what? Now we have to do the same thing from a B2B perspective, right? So we have to think Nest at work. All right. So, is this the perfect storm? Maybe. It's probably coming. I think there's a lot of factors that affect this, but certainly technology like AI will. I think, the cloud revolution has really started this and really enabled this conversation to even happen. Look where Salesforce has come in the last 10 years alone, right? 10 years ago, nobody even knew Salesforce. And I always like talking about this from an overall ERP perspective, because I actually think ERP, how we know it today, is probably dead. I mean, I know you're all invested. I worked at SAP, so full disclosure, right? So. And I love SAP, and I know lots of people at SAP, but I don't work there anymore. I work at Tradeshift. But look, I think ERP as we know it today is dead. But what I really mean there is that in the context of ERP type applications, right? Look what happened with CRM. So Oracle and SAP and others are playing in the CRM space. And guess what? Salesforce came along and they put in this land and expand strategy, and before you know it, boom, Salesforce is the de facto CRM system that everybody in this room probably uses, right? Same thing happened with HR or HCM. Companies like Workday came roaring on the scene in a very, very similar way and started eating these applications, these ERP type applications, eating their lunch, right? So guess what? What's left? Procurement, supply chain, sourcing. It's ripe for the picking. This is where innovation will happen. And so the perfect storm is there. Cloud, leveraging a true networked platform is really, really critical. What do we do every day on Facebook? Click, click, click. It's all networked. We're so connected. Or LinkedIn, we're all so connected from a personal perspective. But wouldn't it be amazing if we could be that connected from a B2B perspective as well? So the perfect storm is coming, and I think, as I mentioned before, this really should be about value creation, agility, and speed. That's the new black. Orange is not the new black. I like that show, but orange is not the new black. Those things are the new black for procurement and supply chain. Absolutely. Here's what the analysts predict, at least Gartner. Mainstream adoption of AI, multi-enterprise grid, and remember that term, by the way. This term is going to go places. B2B network intelligence and blockchain will take place in the next 5 to 10 years. So they predict that in 5 to 10 years, these technologies will be really well ingrained. But here's what I predict, because I see this every day, with not only within Tradeshift, but across the software industry in general. These technologies will be and are available now and will be available in the next 2 to 3 years in a more commercial way. They just will be. We see what's happening, and this is why I mentioned the Hyperledger project. Our long-term roadmap investments are based on what Gartner is saying are the 5 to 10 year transformational roadmap pieces. And again, we're doing this today. The majority of our R&D resources are already bringing these kinds of solutions to market. And the bottom line here is that this will affect all enterprise software, right? So, as I mentioned before. So, the years to mainstream adoption, it's going to be 5 years and under. For certain, it will be 5 years and under. Here's a quote. MIT author of Digital Transformation is a Misnomer. At its most fundamental level, digital transformation is about the ability of organizations, its leaders, and employees to adapt to rapid changes. So again, when you think of motivation of you and your teams and the organizations, and when you think of the impact on the actual people side of it, keep this in mind. Really, please keep this in mind. Digital transformation is really driven by people. We are going to be running those AI systems. We don't know how to run those AI systems today, but it is you and your teams that will be managing those AI systems. They're not necessarily skilled to do that today, but they're going to need to be in the next few years. Let's shift a little bit and talk about procurement as an innovator. Again, you've heard me say this over and over again, and I'll say it more directly. Change your team now. So a conversation I had a couple of months ago with a company in Europe, I was really shocked actually. They had, over the course of 5 years, changed 55% of their procurement team with non-procurement people. Gulp, right? I mean, wow, is that a shocking number for all of you? Just show your hands. Show your hands. Is that a shocking number? Yeah, for many of you. I thought that was a huge number. I mean, that is really significant. But the reason they did it is they said, we can't move fast enough with legacy processes, legacy technology, and legacy thinking, no matter how much we love these people. Now, the good news is they redeployed a lot of people in other parts of the organization and sort of swapped them out, so they didn't all receive pink slips, thank goodness. But the point here is that you have to really examine how your teams are organized and structured and what they're doing. And I'll talk a little bit later about how that can be done more specifically. Collaboration breeds innovation. I think collaboration really underpins innovation. I think it is an absolute necessary in order for this innovation strategy to really show up well in your organizations. Who of you have read the book or heard of the book Team of Teams by General McChrystal? Yeah, have you read it? What did you think of the book? Yeah, they're like, it's a good book. It's good. It's excellent. I like reading, and it's. I thought the cover was nice, and thank God for Audible. And I forget how to read, so I just listen now. Oh, okay, I'm just having fun with you. So I think there's some really interesting concepts in that book, right? Team of Teams is really about leveraging and collaborating not only within your department, but across organizations. So it's interdepartment, it's intra-department, and then it's also with even everyone in your ecosystem. So partners or investors or whoever else, right? The board. So the idea here is that, it's kind of the idea of some of the parts, right? So if you can mobilize your teams and your organization to sort of function in that team of teams fashion, then it will help you move faster. It sort of addresses that, not only the adaptability, but also that speed to market. So if you think of teams and just say, look, it doesn't matter if you're in procurement or not in procurement. We're really trying to innovate with you, Mr. IT person or Mrs. Corporate Strategy person. We're trying to innovate, and we want you to be part of this effort. So Team of Teams has some really good principles. It's definitely worth a listen or a read. But collaboration breeds innovation. So it's not just, of course, the collaboration that we do sort of and facilitate human to human, but do you have systems that support collaboration within your organization as well that go across the org, but then also around your whole ecosystem, internal and external. So collaboration is really, really key. And also, you're only as good as the sum of your suppliers. I'd like to focus a little bit on suppliers because suppliers are companies too, aren't they? How many of you are suppliers? I mean, as well as buyers, but yeah, so there are a lot of suppliers, right? Don't you want some more love from your buyers? Who wants more love from your buyers? Same hands go up, right? Yeah. I mean, managing suppliers just still feels a little bit transactional, right? And I think that co-innovation efforts with suppliers, building better and deeper relationships with suppliers, having more meaningful dialogue and collaboration on how to improve either supply chains or pricing or whatever that focus is that you're having with the suppliers, the product catalogs, it can be anything. It's worth the investment because suppliers can actually help you innovate and sort of get to that point. They may have AI innovation teams already set up, raring to go, that you could plug into. Think of it that way as well, right? So this is why I also bring up the seller side, the sell side, because I just think that almost all of the innovation could potentially come out of your seller base if you work with them in that way. Next, start an innovation hub. So within all of your organizations, again, quick show of hands, how many of you have innovation hubs within your business, like incubators, that type of thing? So just a quick scan. So, like, I don't know, 20, that's like 25% of the hands. That's pretty good. Now, how many of you have innovation hubs within procurement? Wow. Is that, again, on? Yeah. No. It's sort of stark, isn't it? Because if we are expected to innovate in our supply chains, with our sellers, in procurement, across the organization, and you have like no incubator innovation type of function even within your team, where do you take that first step? I think this is actually a very good first step to think about inside all of your organizations. It can be virtualized, you can bring in new team members, you can bring in some outside blood, just get some outside-in thinking within your organization that breaks that legacy mold. It's very important that you look at it this way so that you can change for the future. And of course, leverage technology. There's lots of software out there, but is it the right software? So what you want to do is really evaluate the platform or evaluate your technology in a very specific way. Can it meet all of your needs of the business? Does it meet your needs? Does it meet your needs of the team? Does it meet your needs for 2025 and 2030 and beyond? So you are going to have to get your arms around this AI, blockchain, Internet of Things thing. Because it is going to end up working its way, whether you want it to or not, into your overall corporate strategy. It is going to come down that waterfall. I think it's better to kind of push it up the hill a little bit instead of just sort of sitting back and waiting for it to kind of hit you over the head. So leverage technology is a good message here. Another quick quote. In today's world, creativity is a collaborative endeavor. Innovation is a team effort. And again, this sort of speaks to that team of team functions and just sort of helps illustrate that whole point of the importance of collaboration and what it is, what it means to innovation. And that is, it underpins innovation. Okay, last segment here is the platform itself, procurement the platform. So a platform, what is it? This is a very famous sort of futurist author, and he says a platform is a plug-and-play business model that allows multiple participants to connect to it, interact with each other, and create and exchange value. What do you think? Sound good? I think that this also sounds a little Facebooky, a little LinkedIn, but he really means this from B2B perspective. That is the context of this quote. So the interconnectedness of multiple players and participants, whether it's buyers or sellers or others in the ecosystem, should have that ability, as Gartner said, and remember this term, multi-enterprise grid, have the ability to connect with each other whenever they want to. You do it on LinkedIn every day. Why can't you do this in your business? You can. Do you want to? Do you need to? Maybe not right now, maybe not this second, but I'm telling you, it's coming fast. Great example. What's a really good example of a platform that's really disrupted? Airbnb, right? It took out the middleman, the middle person, the middle woman. So that people looking for places to stay could go direct to the source and cut out all that cost and expense and time, right? So this is a good innovative example of changing a platform to meet a very specific need. Of course, this is a little bit more consumer-oriented. So let's think about procurement as a platform. I'm very inspired by tires, by the way, and I'll tell you why. We're not in the tire business. I will tell you about a client of ours, very briefly, that is a large third-party logistics company. And so I kind of gave it away, but of course, what are they most interested, or what do they buy a lot of? Tires for their fleet. But here's where procurement as a platform gets really, really interesting. Think about it differently, and I want you to think about this example in the context of what you do every day inside of your businesses. So this company, and I can't name the company, I'm sorry, but this company said, look, we get these amazing price breaks from our tire suppliers. Why don't we take the tires and look at it as a commodity, create a private marketplace, and invite other companies to buy at our discount. And then when we sell more of it, we get a better discount and offer even better prices to our network in this private marketplace. Talk about innovation, talk about adding value, talk about changing the game. Can you imagine if you can do something like that within your organization? This is the future of platform. This is what and how and where we can add value to our organizations. This is value creation and innovation at its finest. So what does your platform need to do for you? I'm sure all of these things, right? We've listed some very expected items here. Procurement, treasury, direct materials if you're a manufacturer, time management, analytics. But look at the bottom. Collaboration, private marketplace, co-innovation, and all these other pieces that I've mentioned over and over again. So, are your minds changing a little bit about what platform means to you? Don't think about your future state as a suite of solutions. I think that's over, but rather a network platform where everyone is connected. And this last quote here from Gartner, I love this because it's so poetic. Desired insights in the business network or ecosystem cannot be achieved through ERP and EDI. Collaboration with business partners on multi-enterprise processes are a necessity, especially to improve a company's maturity journey. So you see why I said it's a little not poetic. But it does have a very good message, right, that sort of supports this platform discussion that we're having here today. So become adaptable by design and find your platform. And by the way, not just your procurement platform, your technology platform. What is your platform within the organization to your management team? What about your platform to innovate for your team, right? There's a lot of different ways to really look at platform. So, it's time to tear down the silos. Purpose affirms trust. Trust affirms purpose. And together they forge individuals into a working team. That's all of you. Have purpose, have trust, keep that motivation of your teams, because what you do today may seal your fate for the future. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time today. So I will take, there's one more polling question. Oh, look at this. We have other questions. Where's that other polling question I think I forgot to ask? Here we go. So back on your phones, do you feel, so after, I'm hoping that some of these insights sort of shifted some of your thinking a little bit around procurement and sort of a platform for change and innovation. So do you feel now that you're better prepared to pursue a new procurement platform strategy for 2025 versus when you walked in the door? Just a yes or no. So as you're doing that, as you're voting, and we'll see the results momentarily, we are going to look at some of the questions that have come up through Glisser. So thank you, Glisser people.
We also have 2 mic runners. Justin, if you can raise your mic up in your hand over here, and Haley over here. So if you have any voice questions, they will run the mic out to you.
Great.
And these have been voted up. So do you want to start the first
Yeah,
one?
sure.
Do you see AI automating strategic sourcing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. AI is going to automate all kinds of, all parts of procurement, supply chain, strategic sourcing. It just will, right? The manual processes that we're looking at today, whether it's purchase orders, whether it's RFXs, whether it's, trying to build a strategy around direct materials. I mean, any of those pieces are going to be impacted by AI. We see it already today in terms of being able to interact with AI functionality even within our own platform, right? So we enable customers to, sorry, I don't mean to sales pitch this, but, think of it, even IBM Watson or other sort of AI providers, right? You really provide a way in a natural language to interact with AI by simply asking questions. I think we're going to see a lot of that kind of applicability of AI in strategic sourcing, so that it is about inquiring as to, what did I purchase last month? How many purchase orders? Who are my sources of X product or these categories? And let AI answer the question. So that just speeds up that whole process. So yes, I believe strategic sourcing will definitely be impacted.
Let's go to the next question on Glisser.
Here?
Yep, it's just been voted up. How do you think the Internet of Things, IoT, will impact sourcing in the future? Will items reorder themselves, et cetera?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we see it, I mean, it's kind of funny, but we see it today already. I mean, refrigerators reorder parts, right? Or water filters or things. I mean, that happens today. So, of course, that can happen from a sourcing perspective. So, yeah, I think eventually every product will be chipped. And that means it's going to be trackable and traceable, which is why blockchain is important in this context. And it will communicate in this very complex network that will, yeah, absolutely reorder themselves. So I agree.
You know, I wrote an article recently. I have 40 connected items in my house right now.
Wow.
40. I was shocked. I thought I might have 8.
Did you know about all of them?
I didn't until I started writing the article. And now the other thing about that is they're all hackable.
Yeah.
That is one of the scares.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, Debbie Downer over here.
I know,
All right.
sorry.
All right, with automation taking more and more jobs, is it important for employees to establish their personal brands? So yeah, I mean, I think that's a very, that's a wonderful question because, and it sort of speaks to the ensuring that we really take care of our teams and helping, you know, be good leaders, but be also good teachers. We have to get our employees upskilled. We have to get them thinking AI and get them in an appropriate place. But I think the time to do that is actually right now. If you're thinking of waiting a year, it's just, honestly, it's going to be too late. So yeah, get those employees upskilled as quickly as possible. Technology is coming.
We have a question coming up back over. Oh, sorry,
okay.
right here.
We're like this way. Yes,
This-
go ahead. Sorry.
John Fafian, PwC. When I think about our processes within procurement, I'd say half to 3/4 of the cycle time is not, you know, the sourcing stuff, right? It's all the regulatory compliance,
Sure.
risk management stuff.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your thoughts on how you see some of these technologies, you know, enabling that to be done more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, even today we have third-party applications that are built on our platform that help address that. So there's AI in the background that helps automate either updating regulatory processes in a workflow or you know, help maybe on the direct material side of things. So it's happening today in like really specific use cases, but imagine when all of these things really start becoming interconnected and then you really start feeling that impact. So yeah, I think those are excellent areas of where automation and AI it will play a very important part. Yeah, great comment.
Over here.
Is this on?
It is.
Yeah. My name is Mohammed. I'm from Arizona State University, and I have this question for you about digital twins. What do you think, when do you think they're going to grow outside of the heavy manufacturing space? Because, you know, right now, NASA, GE, and Siemens are the only companies really working on it, and it's been paying dividends in terms of tens of millions of dollars every fiscal year.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, GE, Siemens, they're all very good examples of taking AI and digital transformation in general, right, very, very seriously for a long time. So they are ahead of the curve. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure that I fully got the whole question. So what is the actual?
So the concept is digital twins, right? It's a special kind of AI transformation that is, you can track everything, literally everything in real time.
Yeah, and it speaks to Internet of Things, right? It's having that infrastructure to provide sensors on all of these products or machinery or what have you to actually collect that information and decipher, right? So it is, you know, the world is in the process of becoming digitized. And so it is, again, only a matter of time. I mean, we saw in that chart from, I think it was CV Insights, that Internet of Things is really the most expected exponential growth area of devices. And so I think it speaks exactly to your point on digital twins. Yep.
And that's one of our students that asked the question.
Way to go, student. We are impressed. You graduated.
Okay.
Could AI be programmed to be malicious? Never. Is any thought being given to an ethical framework for AI? So there are organizations that are looking at the sort of ethical side of it, and of course, you know, I think there's been a long history for decades of this whole field of bioethics, and you know, I think that is it possible of dumb AI? Yeah. So yes, of course, AI, like any technology, has the possibility of being weaponized. Hacking, you know, security issues are paramount. When you look at studies I've been looking at data for the last couple of weeks, and really what's sort of coming to the top, because I think of recent hacks, is just a real sensitivity to cybersecurity. And so I think that as the world progresses around AI and digitizing, that this is just going to get more and more built into platforms and products and how organizations develop. But I think it will also look very different in about 5 years. And so standards and approaches need to be developed. If you look, there was a gentleman that was delivering a presentation a couple of days ago that I was at, and they showed this sort of progression just of MarTech, marketing technology, firms. And it's grown from what, I think it was like a couple of hundred just a few years ago, to over 5,000 marketing tech firms. And guess what? They all need to address sort of the same issue of cybersecurity as well. So yeah, I mean, there's some work to be done, but of course we're also protected by things like SOC 2 and other security standards already today. So have some comfort in that as well. Yeah. Is it possible to have dumb AI? Well, yeah, I mean, it's dumb and dumber, right? It's, the AI systems are only going to be as good as the humans that teach it. I think that's the lesson there, right? And so AI by itself is a little bit dumb. I mean, we need, how does AI work often? With training sets. And who helps AI understand those training sets? Well, it's humans, right? And so there is still a very healthy interaction between what we have to do as practitioners and users against an AI system. So yeah, AI can be dumb, and it is dumb, and it's us in this room that are going to make it smarter.
We have time for just one last question, so I'm going to give one last chance for the microphone, or we're going to take the
Any other?
top voted.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
so
mic
talk
runners.
about oh,
No, mic runners, you're done.
you're done. Hopefully she didn't mean you're out of a job, because that's, were you not listening? Done. Were you not listening? Okay.
They've been replaced with AI.
They've been replaced with AI, yes. Yeah, that little robot guy, yeah, yes. So you talk about collaboration and innovation. How does procurement get the stakeholders, subject matter experts, in the business to really engage, to trust that sourcing should be at the table? Phenomenal question. It is an uphill battle, right? You're pushing that boulder up the hill, but you have to start. That's why I talked about Innovation Hub. I think it's a really interesting idea, and I've seen this work, and I've sort of practiced this myself. Create a virtual team within your organization that is focused only on innovation. Get a couple of people from IT, get a couple of people from a few other parts of the business that are focused on strategic, like strategic imperatives or initiatives within the organization. Get them involved and help start driving that conversation. You need to be allowed to experiment with some of these new technologies. And so that means you need to have that partner with IT, which is why I say partner with IT. But you also want to partner with strategy so that you show them that you understand what's going on in this market, and that you are not only a great voice and ambassador for this within your organization, but that you can actually be a leader within your organization to drive this type of change. So that's just one example. I'm happy to also talk offline about some other things that I've seen that have worked really well. Okay, here are the results. So apparently I've disappointed 33% of you. I'm sorry. But I'm very happy that I inspired 67% of you. You're my audience. So, look, I think that this still does speak volumes, right? We are ready for change. The time is now. Let's embrace this, and let's work together as a community. SIG really provides us a very safe place to actually do this, right? SIG is enabling you whether you realize it or not. And so it is time to come together and really sort of change the game. Go back to your office on Friday, Monday, whenever, probably Monday, right? Go back to your office on Monday and do something different as it relates to innovation and change as it relates to your procurement platform in 2025. All right? Thank you. Thank you again, everybody. I appreciate it.
That was awesome.